She was just a barefoot drum girl from the hills, poor, hungry, and alone. He was a heartbroken tycoon with a past better left untouched. But when their worlds collided over a forgotten meal and a humble melody, everything changed. Who was this girl with the weathered hands and eyes full of sky? And how did a simple act of compassion unlock the one secret that would heal them both? Sit tight, because this story will move your soul, break your heart, and show you how one moment of kindness can change generations. Lorato was a young mother, desperate and starving, clutching her infant daughter Zuri against her chest. One scorching afternoon in Accra's bustling Makola market, with no strength left in her body, she collapsed right in front of a stranger, Mr. Baraka, a quiet millionaire cocoa exporter. But what this mysterious businessman did next completely changed everything. Who really is Baraka, and how did one moment of human compassion transform two lives forever? Sit back and prepare yourself for this incredible story of hope, hidden angels, and the power of unexpected kindness. The afternoon sun blazed mercilessly over Makola market in Accra. Vendors called out their prices, children ran between the stalls, and the air was thick with the scent of fresh fish, ripe plantains, and roasted corn. In the middle of this chaos, Mr. Baraka sat alone at Mama Ajoa's food stall, slowly eating his bowl of fufu and palm nut soup. Baraka was a successful cocoa exporter in his early 50s, worth millions of cedis, but his eyes held a deep sadness that money could never heal. He wore a simple white shirt and dark trousers, nothing that would reveal his wealth. As he ate, his mind wandered far from the bustling market, back to memories that haunted him every single day. 3 years, he whispered to himself, stirring his soup absent-mindedly. 3 years since the accident took them both. He could still see their faces, his beloved wife Akojua and their 7-year-old son Kofi. They had been returning from a family wedding when the truck driver lost control. In one terrible moment, Baraka's entire world had collapsed. The seat across from him at the food stall remained empty, just like every meal he'd eaten since that tragic day. "I should have been in that car," he murmured, his grip tightening on his spoon. "Why did I stay behind for that business meeting? Why didn't I protect them?" Mama Ajoa, the elderly woman who owned the stall, noticed his distress. She had served Baraka for months and knew he always sat alone, always looked sad. "Mr. Baraka, you barely touched your food again," she said gently. Baraka looked up, forcing a weak smile. "I know, Mama. My mind is elsewhere today." "The same place it always goes," she replied with motherly concern. "You carry too much pain in your heart, my son. Your wife and child, they wouldn't want you to suffer like this." Baraka nodded but said nothing. He pushed the bowl away, no longer hungry. The food had grown cold, but he didn't care. All that mattered to him were the memories of Saturday mornings when Kofi would climb into their bed, giggling as Akojua tickled him. He remembered teaching his son to ride a bicycle, the proud smile on Akojua's face when Kofi finally rode without help. "One day I will see you both again," he whispered. "Until then, I carry you in my heart." Just as Baraka was about to stand and leave, something extraordinary happened that would change his life forever. A young woman stumbled through the crowd, moving like someone fighting against invisible weights. She wore a faded yellow dress that had seen better days, and pressed against her chest was a tiny baby wrapped in a thin cloth. The woman's name was Lorato, and she hadn't eaten in 3 days. Her legs shook with each step. Her vision blurred from hunger and exhaustion. She had been walking through the market for hours, hoping someone might take pity on her and offer help, but everyone was too busy with their own lives to notice her desperation. Lorato looked down at her baby daughter, Zuri, whose big brown eyes stared up at her with innocent trust. "Hold on, my precious girl," she whispered weakly. "Mama will find us something to eat soon." But even as she spoke these words, Lorato felt her strength finally giving out. The world began to spin around her. The sounds of the market grew distant and muffled. Her knees buckled and she fell forward, instinctively turning her body to protect baby Zuri from the impact. She collapsed right in front of Mama Ajoa's food stall, just meters away from where Baraka sat frozen in shock. The market seemed to pause for a moment. Vendors stopped their calls. Customers turned to stare. A small crowd began to gather around the fallen young woman and her baby. "Yeah, what happened to her?" someone called out. "Is she dead?" another voice whispered. "Look at that baby she's holding." Baraka's heart began to race. Something deep inside him stirred, an emotion he hadn't felt in 3 years. Without thinking, he stood up and rushed to Lorato's side, kneeling beside her on the dusty ground. Madam, can you hear me?" he said gently, checking if she was conscious. Lorato's eyes fluttered open weakly. She looked up at the kind face of the stranger above her and tried to speak, but only managed a whisper. "My baby, please, help my baby." Baraka looked at the infant in her arms. Little Zuri was so tiny, so fragile, and her mother was clearly suffering from severe hunger and exhaustion. In that moment, seeing this mother's desperate love for her child, Baraka felt something he hadn't experienced since losing his family, a purpose, a reason to act. "Mama Ajoa," he called urgently. "Bring water and some bread quickly." The elderly stall owner hurried over with a cup of water and a piece of soft bread. Baraka gently helped Lorato sit up against a nearby wooden post, supporting her with his arm. "Drink slowly," he instructed, holding the cup to her lips. "When did you last eat?" Lorato took small sips of water, feeling life slowly returning to her body. 2-3 days ago, she managed to say between sips. The crowd around them murmured in sympathy and shock. A mother hadn't eaten in 3 days? What kind of situation could lead to such desperation? Baraka's heart broke as he looked at this young woman who reminded him so much of his late wife, the same determination in her eyes, the same fierce love for her child. He helped her nibble small pieces of the bread, making sure she didn't eat too quickly and make herself sick. "What is your name?" he asked softly. "Lorato," she replied, her voice growing slightly stronger. "And this is my daughter, Zuri." "Beautiful names," Baraka said with genuine warmth. "I'm Baraka. You're safe now. I'm going to help you." After making sure Lorato had eaten enough to regain some strength, Baraka paid Mama Ajoa for more food, a full meal of rice and stew that he had packed for Lorato to take with her. He also bought some groundnuts and pure water. "Take this," he said, pressing the food packages into her hands. "Make sure you eat slowly and drink plenty of water." Tears filled Lorato's eyes. "Thank you, sir. May God bless you for your kindness. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay me," Baraka replied. "Just take care of yourself and your beautiful daughter." As Lorato stood to leave, clutching the food and her baby, Baraka watched her go with a heavy heart. Something about this encounter had stirred feelings he thought were buried forever. After she disappeared into the crowd, he found himself unable to concentrate on anything else. "That young woman," Mama Ajoa observed, "she's been coming to the market for weeks asking for help. Most people just ignore her." "Weeks?" Baraka's concern deepened. "Where does she live?" "I don't know, but I've seen her walking toward the old Nima area when the market closes. Poor girl looks like she's carrying the weight of the world." That evening, Baraka couldn't shake the image of Lorato and baby Zuri from his mind. He drove his modest sedan toward Nima, telling himself he just wanted to make sure they were safe. He had no intention of intruding, just a quiet check to ease his worried mind. Following the direction Mama Ajoa had mentioned, Baraka drove slowly through the narrow streets until he spotted a familiar yellow dress ahead. It was Lorato walking carefully while holding Zuri close. Baraka parked at a distance and followed on foot, staying far enough back so she wouldn't notice him. What he discovered broke his heart completely. Lorato walked to an abandoned school building at the edge of the neighborhood. The structure was partially collapsed, with broken windows and walls covered in graffiti. But in one corner classroom that still had most of its roof intact, she had created a small shelter using old pieces of cardboard, torn cloth, and plastic sheets. Baraka watched from behind a crumbling wall as Lorato carefully arranged their meager belongings in this makeshift home. She spread out a thin mat on the floor, changed Zuri's diaper using an old cloth, and fed her baby some of the food he had provided. "This is where they live," he whispered to himself in disbelief. "In an abandoned school with no electricity, no running water, no safety." He saw how Lorato ate only small portions, saving most of the food for later. She was rationing it carefully, knowing she didn't know when or where the next meal would come from. As darkness fell, she lay down on the thin mat with Zuri in her arms, using a torn piece of fabric as their only blanket. Baraka stood there for a long time, watching over them from the shadows like a guardian angel they didn't know existed. The sight brought back powerful memories of his own son's bedtime routines, how he and Akojua would take turns reading stories and singing lullabies. What if this was my own family? He thought. What if Akojua and Kofi had survived the accident but somehow ended up homeless and desperate? Wouldn't I pray for someone to help them? That night, Baraka barely slept. He kept thinking about Lerato and Zuri in that cold, dangerous place. By morning, he had made a decision that would change all their lives. The next morning, before sunrise, Baraka made his first delivery. He quietly placed a bag near the entrance of Lerato's shelter containing baby formula, diapers, clean water, some bread, and a warm blanket. He left it where she would find it but couldn't see who had brought it. When Lerato woke up and discovered the bag, she fell to her knees in gratitude. "Thank you, God," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for watching over us." This became Baraka's new routine. Every few days he would leave supplies for Lerato and Zuri, always early in the morning before they woke up, always carefully choosing items they desperately needed. Baby food, clean clothes, medicine, blankets, food that would last several days. Lerato began to believe that angels were looking after them. She had no idea who her mysterious benefactor was, but she prayed for them every night, asking God to bless whoever was showing such incredible kindness to strangers. One morning, Baraka left something new with the supplies, a small piece of paper with his phone number and a simple message: "Call if you ever need urgent help." Lerato found the note and held it close to her heart. She memorized the number but had no phone to make the call. She kept the paper safely tucked in her dress, treating it like a precious treasure. Meanwhile, Baraka continued his regular visits to Mama Ajoa's stall, but now he had a secret purpose. He would eat his meal while discreetly watching for Lerato to appear in the market. When he saw her, he would observe from afar, making sure she looked healthy and that baby Zuri was growing well. One afternoon, as he sat at the food stall, Baraka's phone rang. It was his business manager calling about a major cocoa export deal. "Mr. Baraka, the European buyers want to meet next week. This contract could be worth over 2 million cedis. Reschedule it," Baraka said without hesitation. "Sir? But this is a huge opportunity dash." I said reschedule it. I have more important things to handle right now. Mama Ajoa overheard the conversation and looked at Baraka curiously. "Mr. Baraka, you've been different these past few weeks. Less sad but more distracted. Is everything all right?" Baraka smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him in months. "I think I found something I lost, Mama. Purpose." 3 weeks after their first meeting, disaster struck. Lerato woke up in the middle of the night to find baby Zuri burning with fever and struggling to breathe. The infant was having difficulty feeding and seemed extremely weak. Panic filled Lerato's heart. She had no money for a hospital, no phone to call for help, and no idea what to do. She wrapped Zuri in the warmest blanket she had and ran out into the night, heading toward the nearest health clinic. But when she arrived at the Nima Polyclinic, the night security guard stopped her at the gate. "Madam, do you have money for deposit?" he asked. "Please sir, my baby is very sick," Lerato begged. "She can't breathe properly. I'll find money to pay later, but please let the doctor see her now." The guard looked sympathetic but shook his head. "I'm sorry, madam. The policy is no treatment without advance payment. It's not my rule, it's the hospital's rule." Lerato fell to her knees right there at the clinic gate, holding her sick baby and crying out in desperation. A few other people were waiting outside, and they looked at her with pity but couldn't help. Then she remembered the piece of paper in her dress. The phone number. The promise of help in urgent situations. "Please, sir," she said to the security guard, "can I use your phone to call someone? It's an emergency." The guard looked around, then quietly handed her his old Nokia phone. "Be quick about it and don't make it a long call." With shaking fingers, Lerato dialed the number she had memorized. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. She was about to give up when a familiar voice answered. "Hello? Please, this is Lerato from the market," she said quickly, tears choking her voice. "My baby is very sick. We're at Nima Polyclinic but they won't help us without money. I don't know what else to do." There was a brief pause, then Baraka's voice, now fully alert and urgent. "I'm coming right now. Don't leave that clinic. I'll be there in 15 minutes." Baraka had been lying in bed, unable to sleep as usual, when his phone rang. The moment he heard Lerato's desperate voice, something powerful surged through him, the same protective instinct he had felt for his own son. He threw on clothes and rushed to his car, driving through the empty across streets faster than he had ever driven before. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as he prayed, "Please God, let me get there in time. Don't let this baby suffer." When he arrived at the polyclinic, he saw Lorado sitting on the ground outside the gate, rocking Zuri gently while tears streamed down her face. The security guard was trying to comfort her, but clearly didn't know what else to do. "Lorado," Baraka called as he approached. She looked up, and even in her distress, relief flooded her face. "Sir, thank you for coming. They won't let us in without money, and she's getting worse." Baraka knelt beside them and looked at baby Zuri. The infant was clearly in distress. Her breathing was labored, her tiny body was hot with fever, and she seemed listless and weak. "We're getting her help right now," he said firmly. Then he turned to the security guard. "Open this gate immediately. This baby needs emergency treatment." "Sir, I told the woman already. No payment, no treatment. It's the rule." Baraka reached into his wallet and pulled out a large roll of sadies, more money than the guard had probably seen in months. "Here's your payment. Now open this gate and get a doctor immediately, or I'll have your job by tomorrow morning." The guard's eyes widened. He quickly unlocked the gate and rushed inside to wake up the duty doctor. Within minutes, baby Zuri was being examined by a medical professional while Lorado and Baraka waited anxiously in the small treatment room. "She has pneumonia," the doctor explained after his examination. "It's serious, but if we start treatment immediately, she should recover fully. She'll need to stay here for at least 3 days for observation and 4 antibiotics." Baraka immediately handled all the financial arrangements, paying for the treatment, medication, and a private room where Lorado could stay with her daughter. He also arranged for meals to be brought to them and made sure they had everything they needed. As baby Zuri was connected to 4 fluids and oxygen, her breathing began to improve. Lorado sat beside the hospital bed, holding her daughter's tiny hand and weeping with relief. "Sir," she said to Baraka, "I don't know who you are or why you're helping us, but you saved my baby's life tonight. How can I ever thank you?" Baraka looked at the scene, a mother keeping vigil over her sick child, and felt something shift in his heart. For the first time in 3 years, instead of thinking about the family he had lost, he was focused on the family he could save. "You don't need to thank me," he said softly. "I'm just glad I could help. What matters now is that Zuri gets better." During the 3 days that Zuri recovered in the hospital, Baraka visited every morning and evening. He brought fresh meals for Lorado, toys for Zuri, and spent time just talking with them. Slowly, Lorado began to share her story. She told him about her education. She had studied accounting at the University of Ghana but dropped out in her final year when she became pregnant. The baby's father, a young man named Kwaku, had promised to marry her but disappeared when his family threatened to disown him for choosing a woman from a poor family. "His mother said I was trying to trap her son," Lorado explained, her voice heavy with old pain. "She gave me money and told me to take care of the problem. When I refused, they made sure Kwaku was sent to work in their family business in Dubai. He never even knew I kept the baby." Lorado's own family had rejected her when she came home pregnant and unmarried. Her father, a strict man who valued reputation above all else, had thrown her out of the house, saying she had brought shame to their family name. "I tried to survive by doing small jobs, washing clothes, selling water in traffic, anything to earn a few sadies," she continued. "But when I was 8 months pregnant, even that became impossible. That's when I ended up in the old school building." Baraka listened to every word, his heart breaking for this young woman who had faced such incredible hardship with such dignity and strength. He saw in her the same resilience his late wife had shown when facing life's challenges. On the day Zuri was discharged from the hospital, Baraka made a decision that would change everything. "Lorado," he said as they prepared to leave, "I have something to show you. Will you trust me and come with me?" Lorado looked at baby Zuri, now healthy and alert in her arms, then at this kind man who had become their guardian angel. "I trust you completely, sir. You saved our lives." Baraka drove them through East Legon, one of Accra's most beautiful residential areas. Lorado stared out the window at the large houses, manicured gardens and tree-lined streets, wondering where he was taking them. They stopped in front of a modest but beautiful 2-bedroom house with a small garden full of blooming flowers. Baraka led them to the front door and pulled out a set of keys. "This house has been empty for too long," he said quietly. "It needs a family to bring it back to life." He opened the door and gestured for them to enter. Lorado stepped inside and gasped. The house was fully furnished with comfortable sofas, a dining table, a television, and a kitchen stocked with food. In one of the bedrooms, there was a beautiful crib already set up for baby Zuri. "I don't understand," Lorado whispered, turning to look at Baraka. "Whose house is this?" Baraka's voice was gentle but emotional as he replied, "It's yours now if you want it. You and Zuri deserve a safe, comfortable home." Lorado couldn't speak. She looked around the beautiful house, then down at Zuri, then back at Baraka. Slowly, tears began to fall down her cheeks, not tears of sadness or desperation, but tears of overwhelming gratitude and disbelief. "But why?" she finally managed to ask. "Why would you do this for strangers?" Baraka was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the living room window and looked out at the garden. 3 years ago, I lost my wife and son in a car accident. Since then, I've been living but not really alive. I've been successful in business, but I felt like my life had no meaning anymore." He turned back to face Lorado, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "The day you collapsed in the market, something inside me woke up. Watching you fight so hard to care for your daughter, seeing your love and determination despite having nothing, it reminded me what really matters in life." Lorado listened, holding Zuri close to her chest. "I can't bring back my own family," Baraka continued, "but I can help yours. You both gave me something I thought I'd lost forever, a reason to wake up each morning, a purpose beyond just making money." He handed her the keys to the house. "I hope you'll let me be part of your lives. Not as a stranger helping from a distance, but as family." 6 months later, Lorado's life had been completely transformed. She was working as an accountant at Baraka's cocoa export company, having been able to complete her university degree with his support. Baby Zuri was healthy, happy, and had grown into a bright, curious toddler who giggled every time she saw Uncle Baraka. On a sunny Saturday morning, Baraka arrived at their house for their weekly family breakfast, a tradition that had developed naturally over the months. As they sat in the garden watching Zuri play with her toys, Lorado made an announcement that surprised him. "Baraka, I got a message yesterday. From Kwaku's mother." Baraka looked up, concerned. What did she want? Kwaku is back from Dubai. His mother told him about Zuri. He wants to meet his daughter and he wants to take responsibility. Baraka felt a moment of panic. What if this meant losing the family he had grown to love so deeply? But then he saw the calm confidence in Lorado's eyes. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I want Zuri to know her father," Lorado said thoughtfully. "But I also want her to know that family isn't just about blood. Family is about people who show up when you need them most, who love you when you have nothing to offer in return, who choose to stay when they could easily walk away." She reached over and took Baraka's hand. "You are her family just as much as Kwaku will be. You're my family. Nothing will change that." Baraka felt his heart overflow with a happiness he had never expected to feel again. This wasn't the family he had been born into or the family he had lost, but it was the family he had chosen and that had chosen him back. "And besides," Lorado added with a mischievous smile, "someone needs to teach Kwaku what it really means to be a father. Who better than the man who's been the best father figure Zuri could ask for?" As they laughed together in the garden, baby Zuri toddled over and climbed into Baraka's lap, babbling "Dada," a word that made his heart soar every time he heard it. This story teaches us that sometimes our greatest blessings come disguised as our most challenging moments. Lorado's desperate collapse in the market seemed like rock bottom, but it was actually the moment that connected her to her guardian angel. Baraka's devastating loss had left him feeling purposeless and alone, but helping Lorado and Zuri gave his life new meaning and filled the empty spaces in his heart. He learned that healing doesn't always mean forgetting the past. Sometimes it means using your pain to prevent someone else's suffering. The most powerful lesson here is that kindness creates family. Blood relationships matter, but chosen family, people who show up consistently with love and support, can be just as strong and meaningful. Baraka didn't just give Lorado money or a house. He gave her belonging, security, and hope for the future. Remember that you don't have to be wealthy to change someone's life. Baraka's money helped, but what truly transformed everything was his decision to see Lorado as worthy of care and respect. Sometimes the most valuable gift you can give someone is simply recognizing their humanity and treating them with dignity. We never know when we might be someone's guardian angel or when we might desperately need one ourselves. That's why it's so important to stay open to opportunities to help others and to accept help when it's offered to us. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave a comment below telling me what lesson you'll carry with you from Lerato and Baraka's journey. And remember, there are Leratos all around us, and we all have the power to be someone's Baraka. The next time you see someone struggling, ask yourself, what if this person could change my life just as much as I could change theirs? Because that's exactly what happened in a busy market in Accra, when two strangers became family through the simple but powerful act of choosing to care. Thank you for watching, and remember, kindness always wins. Always.